We are number one in many verticals in Japan. We are the biggest e-commerce company in Japan. We're the biggest credit card company. We are the biggest online bank, online brokerage, online travel agency, etc., etc. Outside of Japan, we have one of the largest reward program called Rakuten Rewards in the US. We own one of the largest social messaging app called Viber, and now we are entering into telecom software business with our subsidiary called Rakuten. So this is our global presence. Notably, that in Canada, we have the second largest ebook company called Kobo. In the world, Amazon Kindle owns about 70% of the market share. We own about 30%. So we are a Japanese startup, but we have a very strong global ambition. And this is what we have built for the last 30 years. My plan when I started was I'm going to retire in 5 years, but I keep doing it. It has been too long, maybe. One of the notable differences is we use just one single brand, Rakuten. So Rakuten Marketplace, Rakuten Travel, Rakuten Car, Rakuten Mobile, Rakuten Bank, Rakuten Brokerage, and we own also two sports teams. Around our brand, we use our data, our point membership program, and our communication to really enrich our ecosystem. So almost everybody in Japan is our members. We have over 100 million membership within 125 million population. So now, talking about India, this is very important for us. Important for us as for our business and also from our development and engineering resources. We have about 5,000 engineers in India, and they are really building extremely strong technological platform for us, not only for our mobile business, but for our e-commerce, our fintech businesses, and so forth. Why we enter into the mobile business? So we are the mobile service provider in Japan called Rakuten Mobile, and we also have software company called Rakuten Symphony. But we are the only one who started from OTT service and went into the mobile service layer. Most of the time, mobile companies want to get into the OTT services, such as content or finance or e-commerce, but we went the other way around. We know that if they join Rakuten Mobile, they use more, and we believe that we want to go global with our software, not with our mobile service. So what we have done is we built the world first. We talk about now technology and communication technology, but we are probably the most successful telecom companies in terms of deploying open radio access network. And by doing full visualization utilizing AI, our total capex is probably close to 50% less than our competitors, and our total cost of operation, top TCO is 30 to 40% lower, maybe even more than our competitors. Rakuten Mobile has only less than 1,000 employees, versus our competitors has 15,000, and we automate as much as possible. So basically, we are the first one to disaggregate really hardware and software, and then deploy the open radio access network in full scale in Japan. And everybody thought this is going to be very challenging, but I think the quality-wise, we are getting extremely high assessment by third-party objective researchers. We have deployed over 340,000 radio stations, including over 100,000 the macro cells towers in Japan, and we are about to get to 10 million subscribers in Japan. Outside of Japan, we built also the network in Germany for our client called One and One Dirish and so forth. We manage 3,000 edge data centers. So we edge computing, and we manage four big data centers, 38,000 servers, and so forth. So very different. And the fact that in Japan, maybe a little bit easier in India, but it's very difficult to build the radio towers in Japan. Rooftop. We build, basically close to 100,000 radio stations in 3 years in the building top of the Tokyo, Osaka, and major cities. And now we have achieved 98.9% of the population coverage by our
डायरेक्ट कर
network.
उनको क्या
And because of it, we are relying on our the global partner.
आप लगा के देखना ऑडियो आ रही
So
है क्या
this is one of the reasons why we can build up so fast without very limited human resources.
Hello.
We can do auto commissioning
चेक कर
our sites, and our configuration on the site is very compact, very light. We use DUC both by our own technology, and we are expanding very fast. And we also use AI for running using controller to make our network stable, efficient, and agile. Now, just
Land
last
preview
point
कर
is
दिया
touching upon our satellite project.
ये ऊपर
We are the founding partner of the company called AST Space Mobile. We gave initial hundreds of millions of dollars to start the company. But the difference between AST and Starlink is basically we have array of antenna. Google, they are our partners, and now if you add so last thing is that we're talking about 5G to 6G, but the problem is how they can reutilize the asset they have. So now, Rakuten Mobile is really deeply connected to our e-commerce and fintech services and our content services and so forth. And we have seen the tremendous distribution effect. Like if they join Rakuten Mobile, they buy 50% more from our marketplace. They use our travel 20% more. They use our credit cards 30% more. So it's not that Rakuten Mobile is trying to disrupt the industry with the mobile, but we are disrupting the mobile industry by our ecosystem and our business model. Rakuten Symphony is, of course, what we talk about today, and it's a software company for telecom. We have OSS run in Aura software. And now we have about 3,000 people in India in 3 offices, and we have 25 products and so forth. So we are trying to combine Japanese innovativity and omotenashi mindset with a high quality, with very advanced Indian technologies and expertise, and try to disrupt the telecom industry. Now we have clients using our software, 12 in the Americas, 19 in EMA, and 14 in APAC. And we are trying to aim to 100 plus customers very, very soon. So this is what we are doing. So we do many things, but in a nutshell, we start from e-commerce, expand into fintech, Now in the telecom business, we are trying to utilize our software to build more relationship with our global partners all over the world. Thank you very much.
It's amazing to see what the journey has been. As you can see, I started my career 2 decades ago in India, actually in Delhi, and with Airtel/Ericsson. So lots of roots back here, but fantastic to see how much progress has been made. And it was great to hear Prime Minister Modi this morning on where India's headed. If any of you have followed T-Mobile journey, it's probably a little difficult. We've been based in the United States. We were number 4 in a 4-horse race for about a decade ago. We did not have the network, we did not have the assets, we did not have the technology, and we were competing with 1 generation technology behind compared to everybody else in the country. Everybody else was selling LTE, and T-Mobile was still doing 3G. That's what our journey was. And that's when we started thinking about how do we actually break that arrogant industry back in the United States. And one of the trade-offs that always had to happen, I heard a lot this morning, a gigabyte of data in this country costed, $90, and now is actually less than a cup of tea, right? It costs about $9 a GB. It was pretty much same in the United States. It was very expensive. Everybody had to pick either between the value or the network experience. And that's what the 3 pillars of T-Mobile journey. We built the best network, the best product, and the best experience. And that's really what happened what made us from number 4 to number 1 carrier in the country. If you look at the 2025 growth on 5G, we have been leading the nation on the 5G. I again heard this morning, some of these stats were pretty mind-boggling for me. Did not realize that over 300 million people in this country have 5G. I think rising to 500 million, somewhere in that range. That's more than the population of the United States. Right? We have about 130 million customers in T-Mobile, and we're sitting at about 80% 5G penetration. So 5G has been absolutely great for thing. But one of the biggest use case for 5G for T-Mobile has been fixed wireless access. We started this journey about 7 years ago, and we had 0 customer. We have now been the fastest growing FWA provider in the country for 13 quarters straight, so coming up on 5th year anniversary. We now have 7 million FWA customers, and that's been the journey of 5G. That's what we had promised on 5G. What would 5G bring to the country? How did we do that, right? And really, it's a platform that's built on innovation. It's a platform that's built on network. That is the product. And we're the only, in US, we're the only scaled 5G standalone network. And why is that important? The reason 5G was invented was lots of enterprise use cases and the standalone, cutting all the cords with the older technologies, looking at the innovations that comes on 5G that were not possible on 4G. And one of the biggest things, I think if you guys saw the video, one of the biggest things that we talked about is 5G slicing. And what does 5G slicing means? There's lots of things you can see in the background on the screen here. These are the use cases of 5G Advanced. These are the use cases of 5G Standalone. I'll take a couple of examples. You see a service called T-Priority. And the first responder is one of the biggest markets in the United States. A first responder connection is all of the 911, which is basically the ambulance, the fire, the police, whatever happens. And that, what we think, is the most important connection for T-Mobile. Not for the customers, but for T-Mobile, it is the most important connection. That is a difference between a life and death situation, right? That's when you really need those connections. And that's what we enabled with 5G Standalone. We have given everybody a higher priority. So when that 911 call comes in, all other connections becomes less important there. On the enterprise side, if you think of small businesses and medium businesses, those businesses are built on connectivity. If you think of Ubers of the world, if you think of Lyfts of the world, or DoorDash, the connectivity is really what makes the money. And that's, again, a good use case of features like 5G slicing on what we're doing in that space. The journey for T-Mobile has been what we call it, from a challenger to a champion, right in there. And how do you think about challenger to champion, or how do we think about challenger to champion? Challengers are somebody who actually follows the rules that are written and then tweak them a little bit. That's what we did as Challenger 5 years ago. There were other competitors of ours that were writing the rules, Verizons and AT&Ts of the world, and we were tweaking them a little bit, and we were actually following them, right? As a champion, we now write the rules. We are writing the rules in the United States, and we are trying to collaborate a lot with the global operators, especially in India, because India has that scale, to really get into the era of 6G and lead the world for 6G. Probably somebody in India here, but T-Mobile in the United States. Um, the next thing that we're working on is AI RAN. I think it's hard to actually not talk about AI in any context these days, right? AI is actually, many people say is overhyped. Generally, our view is AI is underhyped, right? It's not being talked about enough, right? It's not being actually put to use for what its promises were. And AI RAN is the concept that we launched last year at our Capital Markets Day, where we are collaborating with Nokia, Ericsson, and NVIDIA, and T-Mobile is leading the charge on that, where we want to bring AI into the radio network. We want to actually initiate use cases where when you are next to the cell site, when you are next to the tower, everything is virtual and everything that's happening in the AI RAN is based on the GPUs and the AI space there. And why is that important? Because that's the bridge to the 6G era. And we've already started thinking about 6G. One of the biggest things that's happening in the United States over the next 3 to 4 years is the Olympics. It's in 2028, it's in Los Angeles. And that's going to be a biggest showcase for United States of the technology of something that's happening over the next 3 to 4 years. There's no other big event that's happening bigger than LA 28. So lots and focus on that. We, T-Mobile, also actually are the official sponsors of LA 28. So there was a long process that lasted over a year. All the carriers were evaluated, and eventually the government of the United States came back and said they want to pick T-Mobile as the official sponsor for LA 28. And that's where the 6G era is going to start. Now 6G is probably not going to be ready by 2028, but I think there are some areas of 6G that can be showcased, right? And we talked in one of the opening presentations this morning. ISAC, or interference sensing, is one of the biggest showcase for 6G. We have been thinking about 6G a little bit differently. One of the things that we think was missed in the 4G and 5G era was not talking about customer pain points, not talking about what do customers need. It was more of a technology development as opposed to a customer-centric view. From last to best, from having the no network or technology behind, to actually being the best network in the country. And I'm definitely personally looking forward to collaborating more with this part of the world on the 6G development. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hiroshi Mikitani, Chairman and CEO, Rakuten Group. Mr. Ankur Kapoorji, Chief Technology Officer, T-Mobile. Distinguished delegates and innovators, namaste and good morning. I'm happy and proud to be here to talk about democratizing the innovation in India. Today I wanted to reflect on a decade of India's journey that redefined the contours of innovation in India. Under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, India has turned innovation into a people movement, a national mission, and a collective mission. India has emerged as the world's third largest startup ecosystem with 1.9 lakh, that's 190K startups. Patents filings have doubled from 40,000 in 2014 to over 80,000 in 2025. And these patents are not coming from metro cities. They are being filed from remote villages, and startups are being launched from college dorms across our nation. But there is more to the story than numbers. It's about how India's achievements are capturing global attention. When Chandrayaan-3 landed on the South Pole, it wasn't just ISRO that succeeded. Every Indian who ever dreamed of reaching for the stars succeeded. ISRO's low-cost magic proved that frugal innovation isn't about compromise, it's about ingenuity. That innovation begins with access. As you heard this morning, the Jam Trinity, Jandan, Aadhaar, Mobile created the world's most sophisticated digital public infrastructure, enabling direct benefit transfers, eliminating leakages, and empowering the marginalized. Today, 900 million internet users, including 400 million in rural areas, enjoy unprecedented access. With one of the lowest data costs globally, around 9 rupees per GB, we have demolished the barrier of affordability. Our UPI system processes over 10 billion transactions monthly. The One Nation, One Subscription. For research material, demolish another barrier, knowledge itself, probably the first of its kind. Over 6,000 institutions and 1.8 crore students and faculty now have seamless access to 13,000 plus international journals completely free. Through this, we have democratized knowledge, the currency of innovation. Another monumental thing, adult tinkering labs in schools, growing from 10,000 in 2014 to 50,000 planned over the next few years, provide 3D printers, robotic kits, and electronics to nurture youth innovation. These labs are becoming incubators of innovation. Today, a girl in Rajasthan is prototyping affordable water purification systems. The National Research Foundation, with a corpus of 50,000 crores, represents our deep commitment to fundamental research. Today, approximately 6,000 higher education institutions host R&D cells. We have created 75 research parks and technology business incubators across the country. Our mission-driven approach reflects ambition matched with our resources. For example, a 6,000 crore rupees is allocated to the National Quantum Mission for quantum computing. These are not just research programs, they are declarations of our deep intent. The Startup India initiative transformed our entrepreneurial landscape through tax holidays, simplified compliance, and patent fee rebates. We have established the Fund of Funds with rupees 10,000 crore corpus to catalyze investments from agri-tech to space tech. With these, the government is shaping an ecosystem where every setback is seen as learning and not failure. The consolidation of 29 labor laws into 4 labor codes transformed our business environment. The abolition of retrospective taxation ended policy uncertainty. GST created one seamless market of 140 crore people. The insolvency and bankruptcy code brought predictability to business. These reforms signal a fundamental shift from license Raj to a trust-first approach, from seeing entrepreneurs with suspicion to celebrating them as nation builders. Perhaps the most powerful change has been psychological, the mindset metamorphosis. We have moved from a defensive, we cannot, to an assertive, why can't us? This shift in national consciousness may be our greatest achievement of all. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have achieved in a decade isn't miraculous, it's methodical. From adult tinkering labs to technology business incubators, from Startup India to Make in India, from Digital India to Atmanirbhar Bharat, every initiative has one common thread, that is democratization, making innovation accessible, affordable, and achievable for every Indian, regardless of background or geography. AI revolution, quantum computing, and biotech breakthroughs are coming at unprecedented levels. However, innovation is not new to India. We gave the world zero, the foundation of modern computing. We gave the world chess, the original algorithm for strategic thinking. Innovation is in our DNA. And we have awakened this civilizational capability and will continue to do so. Thank you.
So the fireside chat on beyond connectivity, democratizing the engines of tomorrow's innovation. And I hand over to Shireen Bhan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for staying back, those of you who have, to listen to our session here on democratizing connectivity and what the future really looks like. I've got a great set of panelists here. So at the very outset, thank you to Gopal for giving up his 7 minutes so that we can get more conversation time here on the panel, because we are running a little behind schedule. So without further ado, let's get straight into a lot of the words that you heard here being mentioned by our speakers earlier. Innovation, ecosystem, artificial intelligence. Nobody mentioned agentic AI, but I'll get to that. If I could call you Mickey-san, I'll get to agentic AI in just a second. But Minister, since you talked about India's innovation ability, our power to invent for the world, you brought up the example of chess. So let me use that analogy to start with you. What will the next move be from the government?
So the government move is multifaceted, right? We're thinking in every aspect, whether you take semiconductor, you heard this morning what Modi ji and our cabinet minister have explained. We're taking the semiconductor industry as one aspect. We're looking at the quantum computing as another pillar. We're taking the AI as another pillar. And 6G is another pillar. So like this, all frontier, futuristic technologies are being envisioned, and they're all being developed with a mission mode, with specific resources and objectives. They were given, for example, AI mission has 10,000 crores, put it into the budget. Semiconductor, almost 76,000 crores budget was allocated for that. Like that, there is a funding, and there are clear objectives. If you take the AI, we have clarity. We want to do it a responsible AI. What does that mean? AI can be algorithmic and it's invisible. A lot of things can go wrong. So we just want to make sure they're all done in a transparent manner and visible manner. So that's the government intent.
Well, that is where the government is prioritizing, putting its money as well as its bandwidth, no pun intended. But let me follow that up with a question on what I would imagine is something that a lot of people are trying to grapple with today. When the government outlines its idea for self-reliance, for Atmanirbharta, when it outlines its plan for Swadeshi, what does that then mean when we talk about frontier technology as well as the ability to partner with global champions like the ones that we have here up on this stage as well?
No, absolutely. There are certain things that we will be partnering. For example, if you take a look at the telecom, 4G, we're developing indigenous technology. But 6G is a futuristic technology. It requires standards, contribution from multiple countries. So in the 6G mission, we have developed a 6G alliance, which we are working with the world partners so that everybody can contribute to the 6G development. So in that aspect, wherever we can do our own, we will be doing. But international partners, they can come, they can invest, they can innovate here. We have an exceptional talent here. They can also contribute to the innovation, not only for the world, but in India as well.
Okay, so make in India, develop in India for the world as well. That's part of the aspiration and part of the plan. Gopal, let me come to you now. We've solved for connectivity. I think everyone has outlined the many numbers that India is proud of. India has been able to achieve. That issue has been solved for. What next then when we talk about democratizing in the context of the mobile revolution?
Yes, we have solved for connectivity indeed. But there was a story recently, a few days ago, where there was a country in Asia where the internet shut down for 2 days, and that impacted, and it wasn't a very developed country. It impacted the banking system, impacted currency markets, it impacted aviation, it impacted obviously, payments. So connectivity, if it's taken away,
Yeah.
it's got catastrophic consequences. So it's a given, but it's almost like a fundamental right that everybody needs to have. I think the question really that all of us in the digital ecosystem need to ask is what sits on top of connectivity. And if you look at it, I would sort of point out three things which are serious problems that customers have. One is trust. The question is trust increasing or is trust reducing? I'm reminded of a story that actually happened literally a couple of weeks ago where there was a retired person in South
Yes.
India who lost his life savings and then committed suicide, right? And this is not a one-off because globally $1 trillion is stolen. 2024, $1 trillion was stolen. So trust is a fundamental issue. The second big issue is security. With factories, warehouses, banks, transportation, payments, all of it dependent for connectivity. And nation-state actors getting aggressive, cybercrime being on the rise. What are we doing to safeguard our networks? What are we doing to put more sovereignty at the core so that our national infrastructures are really preserved? I think is the second big question. And the third question I would say is around inclusion. And what do I mean by inclusion? Tomorrow you could be talking to a machine on the other end. And the question is, how do you democratize, AI to a larger number of people beyond what is happening today, which is right at the top? So I think we've got to ask ourselves, and the thing is that no company can do this alone. So we've really got to ask ourselves, what are we doing to solve these fundamental problems? I think that sits on top of connectivity.
You've raised three very important questions and three very complex problems, and I think to the point that was being made there by Ankur as well, put the customer at the heart of the conversation, and I think these are conversations that the customer does want to have. I know, for instance, on trust and security, Airtel has brought in the spam calling mechanism, which basically tells customers what is a spam call and what isn't. What more are you going to be able to do on that front? Are you going to be prioritizing your resources to address both the trust as well as the security issue?
Well, we've done our bit, or we will continue to do our bit. We've done this businesses on the spam. We've identified almost 48 billion spam messages since its launch. We've blocked almost 3.5 lakh fraudulent links, and we've been recognized by the Home Ministry that on our network, fraud is actually reduced, right? But we can't do it alone, and I think the fundamental issue is that an individual player can't really be the only, each player's got to do its bit. I think we've got to ask ourselves, if you want to really raise trust, how do we create new institutions? For example, when was it, 1913 or 1914, the Interpol was set up.
Yes.
What can we do to create a global fraud bureau, which is a new institution, and our generation must be held accountable for creating these institutions as technology is changing.
Because we're creating the problem as well.
We're creating the problem as well. And it's not, and the second issue is there has to be new ways to collaborate because it can't be just one player doing it. The whole ecosystem needs to come together. I think GSMA is trying something with the Open API gateway, but it's a very small step in that direction. The third, I think regulation needs to keep pace with changes in technology. And I feel regulation is not keeping pace with changes in technology. Because most regulators today globally, it's not just in India, are focused on the telco sector, which is a very small part of the surface area of the problems that are being created in trust and security. Because this problem goes well beyond the telecom pipes into the digital ecosystem, which also rides on those telecom pipes. But the regulatory overreach on the telecom sector is much greater than on some of the other areas. So it's like, you have a small part of a ground where there's a lot of action going on, but there's a very large field, which is a Wild West. And I think all of these areas need to be addressed.
Important points that you raised there. Let me get the Minister to comment on both those issues that you raised as far as trust and security concerned, as well as the need perhaps for a global alliance, so to speak, as Gopal talked about, to be able to address these things because, these are boundary-less issues, if I could say. I mean, they overlap many, many jurisdictions. Minister, any thoughts on this?
No, absolutely. I mean, for telecom, as he said, as Gopalji said, we have decent and good regulation in my view. But in AI also, that is the whole purpose. AI, generative AI came almost 1.5 years back. That's it. And then, Modi ji has launched with this 10,000 crore budget with the AI mission. In that, absolutely, there are regulations. Regulations is one part of it. Well, ensure, can we do audits? Can we get these data privacies, anonymized data sets? We have to promote innovation at the same time regulate it. So how can we give anonymized data sets? So these kind of regulations are being built up. The technology is rapidly changing. I agree with you that we also have to fast track as quickly as possible. But this trust, and then, for example, as he said, these algorithms that run behind is very difficult to predict. For example, I can, not only in India, like I was in US for 25 years, until 2-3 years back, if I keep checking my flight ticket,
Yeah.
by the time I go and actually buy the flight ticket, price will go up 20-30%. Because they know that you need that flight ticket, you know exactly the IP track. So even before the AI, these things are happening behind. So, and even they are not that kind of regulations in the United States. So absolutely, we have to think about how these things, because common man, it's very difficult, it's invisible. And even for the government, it's not that easy to understand what exactly goes behind. So we need a lot of input from the public where the abuse is happening, and then and absolutely we'll work on regulations.
Miki-san, if I could come to you, from 1997, from the internet era to where we now are in the AI era, trust and security have taken on completely different meanings and completely different dimensions as well. At Rakuten, how are you looking at this issue specifically, and especially as you build out this large ecosystem of 70 plus services that Rakuten is operating today? How do you build in trust and security?
Well, obviously, there are several different aspects about this issue. One is how to protect our data, which we own, by hackers and so forth. At the same time, there are now unbelievable high sophisticated level of phishing that even the very smart people were tricked.
Yes.
Unfortunately, and this is becoming, they can fake my voice and call me and say, oh, you're a secretary, whatever her name is, and asking you to send money to me.
Has this happened to you?
This is similar thing happened with my voice, right? Because now my voice is everywhere. And then also all this severe attack from malicious, I'm sorry, but countries is taking place. And we need to defend it. So, we've been attacked hundreds of thousands of times every single day now, but we have been protecting it. But I think now maybe we're moving into another layer, another level of the sophistication we need to protect the users. Maybe even, in Japan, even the government can access to the data, whereby some countries allow the government to monitor and investigate if there's anything wrong. But Japan, we cannot do it. But I think it's time for us to really start thinking about this. And this is gonna stop, and we need to keep fighting.
Yes, and clearly the complexity is only going to increase as we go more and more into this AI era. Ankur, you want to come in on that, and what specifically you're doing at T-Mobile to be able to cope with this challenge?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for bringing such an important topic. And I'm going to start by quoting what Gopal said, because I think that's really why I decided to take a 24-hour flight and be here, which is we have to solve this problem as an industry. This is not actually an issue, right? The bad actors are out there. They might speak different languages. They might look different, but the end intent is exactly the same. And I think Mr. talked about that as well briefly on what are people doing? Like, how are we getting, like, how the prices go up when you're checking the same flights again and again. And I thought it only happened in US, not
You'll
in
be
other parts of the
surprised.
world.
You'll be surprised.
Maybe it started there. But I think AI is, so spam calling is a great example. I think we've been doing roughly, we launched, we call it Stir and Shaken back in the United States. We launched this, we were the first one to launch it in the country. We started in 2017, so we've been doing it for 7 years. And reality is people have gotten a lot smarter. So one of the other things that we've been now looking at is A spam call is mostly people have to report, and I think the Prime Minister talked about this in the morning. I think Ministers has talked about it. People have to help us. We're now actually testing something that's real time. So while you're on a call, AI actually does actual testing while you're on the call. Look for the voice samples, look for the acoustics, try to figure out if it's machine driven or actual human being, and then put the control back on the customer to warn the customer to say this might be actually an AI call, this might actually be a fraud call. Because things of the past, I actually get spam calls out there where and it's a 10-digit number in United States, right? I actually get calls where 9 of the 10 digits are exactly the same. So I actually almost feels like my own number that I would know very well. And that's where the AI journey is headed. One of the things I talked about in my presentation as well is AI security, right? Because security is the biggest issue right now. The trust factor that customers have in the United States on the wireless carriers is unfortunately going down with every passing day because of some of the bad things that have happened in the industry. I think we've been lucky enough to stay ahead of that a little bit. But one of the biggest reasons why I think we need to solve this as an industry is that collaboration.
Well, and you're absolutely right. No one company, no one player can do it. It will require industry-wide as well as government-wide participation and partnership. But there's a couple of different approaches here on this panel as well, just in terms of business model. If I look at what Rakuten is doing, they've built out this entire, piece on top of their network. Which came first now can be argued as, but you're choosing not to do that. And Gopal, is that likely to continue to be the way forward, where you provide the pipes and everybody else can do everything else on top of that?
Well, I think Rakuten's an inspiring example of coming at it from a completely different perspective. And I think you do have examples of companies like Revolut, who are actually trying to come again into, or Nubank in Latin America, which is a bank, but now has gone into telephony using their digital ecosystem. It's actually an AI company that got into banking in the first place. From an Airtel standpoint, since you're asking me a specific question on Airtel, I think I'm most excited about the B2B opportunity. I think that the B2B business is, or the market is actually limited by our own imagination. And if you look at the deep relationships we have with our customers, the top 500 companies, the next 10,000 companies, we've just launched a couple of weeks ago a sovereign cloud. We're one of the largest users of our own cloud. We have our own cloud. We run all our applications off our cloud. It's almost 250 petabytes of data. So we've now extended this to our enterprise customers in India, which is a completely sovereign cloud, but it has all the capabilities of a public cloud. So I think that's one. On security, I think a lot of it that we're doing is around with partnerships. But the third area that I'm quite excited about is using the power of our data to get into newer areas like lending. We've begun a lending business, of course, not on our own balance sheet. We do about $800 million of lending now. And it's a very, very good business because the markers that we have on customers, almost 3,000 attributes, are far richer than what the lender has. And so the delinquencies that we're seeing by lending on our platform are actually much lower than what the lender would have seen. And so that's quite interesting. And so those are the areas that we are looking at.
Miki-san, if I could take that forward with you, because you've been successfully able to build on top of the network, and whether it's fintech or all of the other businesses that you're currently operating, what have been some of the big learnings there? Because it also boils down to not just being able to bring the customer in, but then holding on to the customer and getting the customer to spend more across each of your businesses, correct?
Yeah, so we are living in, anybody can become our friends and anybody can become our enemy, right? So
hopefully more friends on this panel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for example, if you think about our industry, for example, e-commerce, is Google our competitor or our partner? Is OpenAI our competitor or our partner? And if you think about, this is multi-layer competition. It's not like a peer-to-peer competition. We are talking about who owns what, who owns the customer, who owns the data, and it is going to be. And if you think about the nature of telecom industry, I thought about what is the core asset of telecom? Why? One is phone number, which is a kind of universal, only universal unique ID for everybody in the world. But now everybody can issue credit card number. Everybody can connect through Wi-Fi. So what is the real core, unique, valuable asset of a telecom company, which I think is a data, right? Which I think are data. Otherwise you need to compete and you're commoditizing your the service. So how you can utilize the data and connect to your ecosystem. By doing that, you can lower the price to your services, and you can utilize the data to re-enrich and then basically create stronger relationship with your customer. So now we're number one e-commerce. If they join Rakuten Mobile, they buy 50% more. Now we're the biggest online bank in Japan, biggest credit card in Japan, but it's all around the reward program data. And we added connectivity into that, the value, and which is very, very powerful.
Talking about the power of data, Ankur, I want to come to you as well on how you're looking at the data piece and what you believe that could potentially lead to, not just for companies like yours, but for the industry in the future.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to think about how at least we have been thinking about data, and I think Gopal touched on that briefly. A decade ago, we were collecting lots of data, and we've now been thinking about connecting this data. So whether you think about all this connected intelligence and new businesses that have been built across the globe, right? But I'll take a couple of examples of what we've done in T-Mobile. We have a relationship with a third of US population, as that's how many customers we have. There's no reason for us to believe that the other 2/3 actually behave and think differently, right? If we have that much information. A couple of businesses that we have built based on this data that really with that customer centricity in mind is the T-Mobile Money. We know when people are paying bills. We know what their needs are. We know what their qualifications are. We actually know more than FICOs of the world, which is actually the credit bureaus back in the United States. We know more about these customers than actually these industries do. The second one is the advertisement business, which is starting to boom up really, really big in the in US. And if you go back, I think Mr. talked about prices going up. But if you look for and I've done this personally, I was trying to shop for a shoe that I wanted to buy. And everybody, obviously, I signed my life to Google, so they know when I'm looking for it. And I couldn't get rid of that ad, right? What they did not know was when I actually bought it. And I did not want to see it anymore, right? And I've moved on to something bigger and better. And I don't think our personal belief, lots of service we have done, customers are not actually opposed to seeing advertisements on their phone. They want to see meaningful advertisements. They want to see something that's important for them.
Yeah.
And they're willing to share that information with that, right? That anonymization, that connected intelligence is really kind of what we're working on.
Minister, sorry, Mickey, you want to make a point? Yeah.
I think the nature of the competition is going to change dynamically, right? If you think about the unique advantage of telecom companies is the spectrum. And when we started the low spectrum of 67, megahertz or 70 megahertz low band, and we went in the mid band, and we went to millimeter wave, and we are talking about super high band.
Yeah.
So that means everybody will have a lot of spectrum. So this is going to create another level of competition, and we are not talking about radio towers on the ground, but from the space too. So, I really think the nature of competition is going to move. There will be no difference between Wi-Fi 6 and 5G or the space or the ground.
Yeah.
And now everybody will have a lot of spectrum. So I think telecom companies need to think differently.
Well, that's an important point that you make, and I'll get Gopal to respond to that. But Minister, just on the data issue, because data is also a public good, and the government is also looking at ways of being able to leverage on that as a public good. Any thoughts that you can share with us on what we can expect on that front?
No, I mean, data must be used responsibly, right? Privacy is the biggest issue. And if you use the data inappropriately, it will perpetuate our own inherent bias. So the whole idea is, how can you use this data that improves the outcomes? For example, there are some models, It all depends on how you build on it, how you build it in a perfect way. For example, in Uttar Pradesh, they use a TB diagnostic tool based on the pattern recognition, and in fact, 20% of the diagnosis were wrong. I mean, when you're using this data, is it critical?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the things somebody have to keep in mind, what they are trying to do and how much error chance you have. And are you perpetuating your own bias? Are you cleaning it up? So all these things, there are multiple factors you have to think about it, and that's the government role to think on how to do that.
Absolutely, you make a very valid point there. But coming back to what we just heard there from Miki-san, that the competitive landscape is going to change completely. It's no longer about how much spectrum that you have, but you've not got satellite players, including you're a satellite player yourself. How do you believe the competitive nature of the business is going to change business models and strategy going forward?
The thing is, and I agree with Mickey-san, because actually over the last 10 years, in any case, the competitive nature of the industry has changed. The industry sometimes, the telecom industry can sometimes be blamed for putting its head in the sand and thinking of its competition only as another telecom player.
Yeah.
But the fact is that there is a whole digital ecosystem out there that is also building digital services. But I want to come back to the point on data. You know, I agree with Mickey-san that one of the single most important assets that a telco has is data. But it's staggering to see globally the number of telecom companies that have not been able to harness the data. And that is simply because it sits in different silos, different departments, not talking to each other. So one of the things that we've done over the last 6-7 years is to really spend a lot of time on trying to pull that data together. And you know, today we are in a position where the way the data is ingested, the way it is cataloged, the data quality, if you go back in history and look at the quality of the data, the lineage of the data, all of it is automated. And we have over 3,500 to 4,000 attributes of an individual user. And I agree with the minister when he says that, you know, all of it must be used responsibly. And I think the great advantage that a telco has is that users trust us with their data because we don't use that data to advertise and sell the data to other players in the ecosystem, unlike a lot of digital players. Whereas if you can use that data responsibly to build new revenue streams for yourself and solve a problem for a customer, then I think you're in a sweet spot. And I think that's really what
Is
telcos
that where the future is heading?
Well, I don't know where the future is heading because one thing I can be sure of is nobody knows where the future is heading. I think the only thing you can say is what's not going to change. What's not going to change is customers are still going to look for a trusted service. They're going to look for connectivity everywhere. They're going to look for you to solve genuine problems that matter to them.
Let me
But how it will change, how it will be delivered, whether, you know, satellite networks will now at one day start taking over terrestrial networks over the next 20 years as 40, 50,000 satellites, who knows how it's going to change.
Let me reframe the question then. At a 200 rupee ARPU, are you going to be forced to look at other revenue streams?
Well, I have to correct you. We're at 250 rupees,
Okay,
by the
250
way.
rupee ARPU. Are you going to be forced to look at other revenue streams?
You have to. I mean, India is a very, very difficult place to operate in because the customer is more demanding than the customers in Europe. I can tell you that, right? Just in terms of the quality of the network. You're operating with the lowest ARPUs and the lowest rate per gigabyte, and yet you have to make money, which means you have to operate with a lean model. So I think there's headroom for pricing to go up in India. But that said, I think you just have to be more and more efficient in how you deliver the service, and at the same time start looking at alternate revenue streams, or new revenue streams, which will never compensate for the big flagship, but it will add a little bit.
But that brings me to an important question. I think each one of you spoke about that in your presentations as well. The issue of pricing as well as the issue of monetization, because at the end of the day, you're also answerable to your respective shareholders as much as you're answerable to your customers. Miki-san, let's address that issue with you. How have you been able to address the monetization issue? You know, it was interesting you talked about slicing as far as your 5G services are concerned. Are we also now ready to see a move towards premiumization? I'll ask Gopal whether India is ready for that, but are you starting to see some of that play out in the markets that you operate in? Miki, let me ask you to start with.
So that you talk about a new bank and other players now getting, including us or one new mobile companies are either it's MVNO or MNO, they are getting into this industry. The why? The reason is very, very simple. Mobile phone bill, maybe not in India, but in other parts of the world, has been too expensive. So if you think about how much Japanese people need to pay for their lifetime, it is almost, if you family member of four, we're talking about 250,000 US dollars for their lifetime.
Wow.
It's a huge amount of money, and it was too expensive. But it was, they can do it because we had only 3 players, and it was kind of you had to use maybe some of the specialized equipment, and there's no players. But the government was not very happy about it, right? So they allow us to get into the industry, and we thought about, shall we use traditional technology or shall we use full virtualization? And we know that if we go to the full the traditional approach will be locked in by the vendors. We do not have an advantage of procurement.
Right.
So the other big decision we have decided to do is take the challenge of virtualization and open radio access network, so that we will be able to select whatever hardware we have to use. And this is giving us very, very low cost of operation. And talking about AI, I think it is going to be key for all telecom companies to how to virtualize it and how to utilize AI to lower the total cost of operation.
Okay, wonderful. Quickly, Ankur.
Yeah, sure. And I'll go fast on this. I think monetization is a key issue right across the industry. Though the way we've been then, and we get this question a lot back in the US media as well, right, is what are we doing about monetization? I'll come back to quickly on the slicing thing. But it's really about delivering the value. I think that's how we have to start thinking about it. I think customers are willing to pay more, and it's probably true in the Indian market as well, as long as there's value that they're getting out of it right there. What people are not willing to pay more is when you're not getting the value. So example of that back in the US marketplace is kind of things that comes with streaming opportunities of services like Netflix and Hulu's of the world. From network slicing perspective, actually Gopal and I had this discussion a few weeks back. We actually have been doing network slicing commercially now. We have millions of customers that are actually using network slicing. I think that the time is ripe. I think there's still some work needs to be done. But I think we are at a point as an industry where network slicing will become a very big reality. And something that people would be able to buy again back to. If they see the value, I think they're willing to pay a little bit more.
Well, we'll see when we see it roll out in India as well. But we've run out of time. Let me start by asking our guests. We're here at IMC in India. So, Miki-san, let me end by asking you, what excites you about India? Specifically, what excites you about Rakuten's operations in India?
Well, it's a very rare country which the population is still growing, number one, and very energetic, and you have an unbelievable amount of engineering and creative talents. I really think we are from the population shrinking country. So I feel the energy and leadership is very strong. So we want to be the part of the growth, and we'd like to contribute to the Indian economy.
Well, we look forward to hearing more from you on that, Ankur. Dialing down on India.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's the passion, it's the skill set, absolutely. But I'll tell you from my perspective, what's the most important thing that I think what excites me about this partnership is the need to win, is the desire to win, is the desire to innovate, right? And that's something that everybody here is hungry for. I think we have lots of innovation capabilities, lots of infrastructure back in the United States, and club that with the desire here and with the skill sets here. I think that's a lethal combination.
Well, the winning combination, Gopal.
No, nothing more to add. I think it's always good to meet friends when you come here to the Mobile Congress. So
and a word on what's exciting about India from your perspective today.
Well, I think I think it's been said. I think the mindset of wanting to win, I think, is the most interesting thing in India, and I contrast that with other markets and outside, especially in Europe, where the mindset is not the same. I think just the passion and the hunger to make a difference, I think, is the other thing. And of course, we have a large and growing market, so it's still very, very exciting.
With a lot of headroom for growth. Minister, I'll give before we close?
No, I mean, as they said, I think there are two other fundamental things. One is a strong leadership. I mean, India has had independence for almost 75 years, but this is the first time over the last 10, 11 years, the entire ship is, sailing at much faster speed, right? There is a reason these things just doesn't happen, not only in terms of the policy, the mindset metamorphosis, what I explained, a continuous drive to, having a clear plan, dedicating resources from school to post-graduation, putting this into and continuously talking about startups and all this stuff, that entire positive energy, willpower, and the talent, and the middle-class people who are hungry to be successful, being entrepreneurs, is what excites, I think, for the rest of the world to be in India.
Well, absolutely. Gentlemen, we could have continued this conversation, but unfortunately we're out of time. But the message is very, very clear. India, of course, continues to be a very exciting market, but there's also a fair amount of disruption that's taking place, not just here in India, but globally. And of course, each of these companies and the industry is poised to face those with the use of technology, but also with the use of some specific innovations specifically to address the needs of trust and security. From all of us here, thank you very much for watching, and look forward to more conversations here at the IMC. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much to Shireen and to the Honorable Minister and all our panelists for